Hey everybody, and welcome to another E-Waste Wednesday, also known as Ew.
Hi everyone, welcome to Ew.
It just happens to work out that way. It's not that we cover disgusting things necessarily. In fact, we cover really interesting old technology that I find at E-Waste, at thrift stores, and wherever I happen to be headed that week, or things that just end up in my lap. Things that aren't maybe interesting enough to do a full video on or don't need repair, but still really cool to see what you can find at E-Waste these days. In my first E-Waste Wednesday episode, I asked for comments and asked you guys whether you wanted to see more of this type of stuff and allow me to get more content out. And you all overwhelmingly said, yes, you want to see more E-Waste Wednesdays. So I'll play around with this format a little bit, but you can expect to see the stuff that I find. We'll go over it a little bit, take a look at it, see if it's working, and maybe talk really briefly about the history when it came out. And then, or maybe even some really quick repairs, things that can be done, changing a fuse or things like that, but not like a really in-depth repair episode. So thank you so much to everybody that commented on that first episode, and I'll try to get these out on a more regular basis. I like to start with the least interesting and go to the most interesting, but if you saw the thumbnail, you probably know what these things are, and I think this is going to be a really special E-Waste Wednesday episode. So first up we have very heavy eMac. So I found this eMac at E-Waste. It was looked like it was in pretty good condition, and these were, I guess the E was for educational. These eMacs that came out, it does have a flat CRT screen, so none of this curved nonsense with CRTs, and it also has some nice speakers on the front, what I assume is a CD player or DVD player here in the front as well. So the eMac was originally targeted at the education market, but was later made more generally available to the mass market. And it was kind of meant to be a cheaper alternative to the second generation iMac G4 that Apple had introduced. So they released this in 2002, and it really only lasted about 3 years. It was actually pulled from retail on October 12th, 2005. But was continued to be sold to educational institutions, i.e. schools, I guess colleges, whatever. But then it was officially discontinued for good on July 5th, 2006. This is according to Wikipedia. So yeah, pretty cool. Something that was only in the market for a little while. In my definition of retro and vintage, this is just on the borderline these days of being retro and vintage. I would call it not even retro and vintage, but in this case, this is about what I find at E-Waste. So doesn't necessarily have to be vintage in every case. Certainly that's what I'm on the lookout for. But I didn't have one of these in my collection, so I'm hoping it works. I'm really glad to see it available at E-Waste. And so yeah, let's go ahead and turn it on and see if it's working. And before we do that, actually, let's take a look at the ports, because I do want to show you this has a full set of modernish ports for I/O and sound and things. So we have sound and microphone jacks here, 3 USB ports, 2 FireWire ports, an Ethernet, or no, that's a modem port? Oh, modem and Ethernet. Okay, this one's the modem. Weird. I thought they would have been gone by now, but yeah, modem, Ethernet, and display, like a mini display. Apple's mini display port is over here on the end as well. So full range of ports, and then the power button is here. And then on the bottom here, there's this little door. Again, I don't know anything about eMacs. It's the first time I've ever played with one. But there's this little door. I don't know if this thing slides or maybe it pops off. It looks like it wants to pop off. Am I going to break it do I need to take that screw out? Yeah, I think I need to take this screw out. I kind of want to see what's under here. This may be for memory expansion or something. Ooh, there we go. A little dusty in there. So this is a filter maybe, or I don't know what that is, but super dusty right in here. And then of course it does look like there's some memory cards in here. Sorry if I'm getting in the way of the camera. And these are kind of more like modern memory slots with the, if you press the tab down all the way, it kind of ejects the memory. Okay, this Samsung memory does say 256 megabytes. So that's what that one is. And then this other one, I see a 512 on there, so this might be 512 megs of memory, I assume. So let's put this back in and see if this thing will boot up now. Okay, so we hit the power button in the back. And nothing. I would expect the CRT to come on, but I'm absolutely getting nothing. There is, in Macs of this vintage and newer, there is, I believe, some PRAM. Is that what it's called? Yeah, the PRAM or NVRAM. There's a keyboard command option PR. If you hold those down, the PRAM, I guess, is kind of like a startup BIOS kind of settings thing where it holds some of the settings in memory, such as what the startup hard disk is and stuff like that, so that when it powers up, it remembers those settings. But you can reset that either with the keyboard option on newer Macs, I think, maybe even on Macs of this vintage. And I think you can also hold the power button in for 5 seconds when you start it up. And I think that also will reset it. Let me grab a keyboard real quick, but we'll try the power button method first. Okay, I think I pulled this keyboard out. I think it's from a G4, but it's USB, so it should work here. So let me try holding in the power button for 5 seconds, see if that actually works. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, I did get, hey, look at that. Got the bong. Nice. So it looks like that did it, holding in the power button. So if you get something like this, I bet a lot of people would bring something like this to eWaste. If the PRAM wasn't working or needed to be reset, oh, there's the screen. But if it wasn't booting when they hit the button once, I bet somebody just brought this to eWaste because that wasn't working. Or maybe, it's just old, obviously. It very well could be an issue. I'll try to fix that flicker on the screen in just a minute. Let's let it boot up first and see if I need to fix that. Oh my word. Okay, let's see if I can fix this screen here. There we go. That looks better. Holy moly. Look at all these icons. This is a little crazy. This definitely reminds me of the 2000s when a lot of people just put, and still put just everything they want, they ever need access to, they just put it on the desktop. Like, don't worry about what it is. This just looks, oh my word. It just looks crazy. We've got the Gourmet Cal Specialist. Firefox is up here. A lot of pictures, plaid dress, floral dress. Somebody was really into dresses, black and white top, and eBay checklist. I mean, it's just holy moly. Also, it says your computer's clock is set to a date before March 24th. I got this last time on the laptop I was looking at. Before March 24th, 2001, this may cause some applications to behave erratically. So that's pretty hilarious that obviously the battery isn't holding the date anymore in CMOS. And then you've got like Southwest Airlines, the Ding application, I guess, like for back when Southwest, I think at this point, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but if I remember correctly, Southwest was doing like these late minute fares, like $50 to wherever you want to go or something like that. So we've got that, and we got Firefox. Anyway, this is just pretty crazy. Obviously, this thing needs to be wiped and start over with everything. How do I get this to pop out? There's no button. There it goes, option, and then whatever this thing is. Oh, it's not, oh, come on out. Where are you going? There it goes. So the door must be a little sticky. This is something file from home. I don't know what that is. Something that somebody wrote on a CDR. So that is still in there. I'll have to check out and see what that is. Can I close it now with this? Yeah. Oh, cool. Learning stuff about Apple all the time. I have no idea. So I found a white mouse. So that should match, at least aesthetically. I don't even know if this mouse works. About this Mac. Will that tell me something? Okay, so this is macOS 10.4.11. And this is a 1.25 gigahertz PowerPC G4 chip with 768 megs. Yeah, just like we saw that was plugged into the bottom there. So 512 megs plus another 256 gives us 768 megs of DDR SD RAM. So I'll probably go in at some point and format the hard drive and reset everything back to default. But given the vomit of icons here on the screen, Even with that, this is still a pretty cool machine. I'm glad it was easy to get up and running. And yeah, I'll keep this in my collection because I'm sure at someday this will be considered retro or vintage for Macintosh. Certainly was only out for a few years, so it's kind of unique from that standpoint. And now it's time to thank the sponsor of this episode, PCBWay. PCBWay offers inexpensive PCB manufacturing and a whole lot more. Need assembly services? No problem. They can do front side, back side, through-hole components, you name it. They also offer 3D printing, CNC milling, and more. So check out PCBWay for your next project, and I thank them for their support of the Retro Hack Shack. Okay, now we have what I would say is the star of the show for today. Really cool e-waste find. And it's this Mac SE. I love finding this stuff because, it's older, it's retro, more interesting to me than the newer stuff that I'm more familiar with. And SE was kind of more of a special thing at the time. It was the upgrade. It was the next version of Mac after the Plus, the 1 meg Plus. Had expandable memory and more expandable ports in general. I think when this came out, if I'm not mistaken, it was either the SE or the SE30. When they came out, I mean, Apple made a big deal about this being more serviceable and more expandable, which technically it was.
Can you show us how you can get at the expansion chassis and so forth?
Sure. If we take a look inside the machine, pull the cover off, you see a very different Macintosh. And in fact, this Macintosh shares only one component with previous machines. If we take a look at the logic board, and you'll see that the logic board has many, many changes on it. I'll sort of tilt it up here. Right away, you see this is the expansion slot for the cards. We'll come back to that.
Charlie, you've got the slot in there now so that we can put an add-in board, but I think the manual says don't do it yourself. You've got to take it to your dealer. What's the point in that? Yeah,
that's right. Well, as you can see, it was very easy for me to take apart the machine, but this isn't really the sort of thing that the average user would be good at doing.
But a lot of people at the time weren't thinking, they were comparing this to the IBM PC, which you just unscrew a couple of screws, slide the cover off, and you can put in additional cards. This is still really difficult to get into, and I'll show you why in a minute. But let's take a look at this, and then we'll talk about what could be wrong with it, and I'll show you how to open it up. So again, this is a Macintosh SE, not the SE30, which I think is the top of the line here in this vintage. The SE was released in 1987, so a full 12 years before the one that we just saw here. It came standard with 1 megabyte of RAM, but it was expandable to 4 megabytes because there's slots on the motherboard. We'll get in there in a minute and take a look at that. And Apple sold this particular model up through 1990. So again, it was on the market for 3 years, just like the eMac was, I guess, so that they kind of share that in common. I think the SEs typically came with a floppy drive, which is what this is going to be here. And then I think the hard drive was still optional at this point, but it has a little light here. So I'm assuming that there's a hard drive in here. The issue with the hard drives is that the little rubber bumpers that are on either side of the head get sticky. And so sometimes the rubber breaks down. If you've ever seen anybody else's videos where they're restoring a cassette player or something with a rubber belt and the rubber has disintegrated, that same type of rubber, I believe, are in a lot of these hard drives where the head would move back and forth against to kind of to be a bumper, to be a cushion, right, for the head, so it doesn't knock against metal. Anyway, those bumpers can degrade. Those rubber bumpers can degrade, and then they'll actually stick to the head. The head will stick to them, and the hard drive won't work correctly anymore. And sometimes you can actually take those apart. I did it once. You can take those apart, and you can replace the little rubber bumpers, and it'll fix the hard drive. So if maybe this will be, if I have to do another video on this, that might be part of the repairs here that I have to do. Taking a look at the back here, we have a little security doodle thingy here. There's power, of course, and then on the bottom we have a couple of ADB ports, which is the trend that lasted a long time in many Macs and Apple. I think the Apple II GS, and I think even maybe the Apple IIc Plus even had ADB ports in it, if I recall. And then we've got a SCSI port and a parallel port, or no, this external hard drive, I think, external hard drive port. And then a printer port, a modem port. Again, you'd have to have the right dongle here, and then a speaker port. So those are the ports on the back of the Macintosh SE. This one does say 1 megabyte of RAM, 800K drive, as well as a 20 SC, a SCSI, I guess, probably 20 megabyte SCSI hard drive in this thing. So I do think we're going to have to open this up. And the reason why is because I wrote myself a little post-it note and put it on top. And as you can see there, it says, Reefa cap, explosion, question mark. And that's because I took this into the makerspace on our vintage night and went ahead and tried to power it on. And when I did, it actually did come up and I got the bong, but then almost immediately I got smoke coming out the top, and it was the nasty smelling smoke. Really, really stinky, nasty stuff. Anyway, it looked like it was working when I first turned it on, but that Reefa cap, I turned it off right away as soon as that Reefa cap blew. And so that could be an easy fix that we could even do on this e-waste Wednesday.
It was very easy for me to take apart the machine.
If that's the only thing wrong with this, I could replace that Reefa cap, or you can just take it out. Actually, if you just want to do some testing, just desolder the Reefa cap completely, take it out, and it'll work without the Reefa cap, as long as it's the Reefa caps that are on the power supply input. These were supposed to be user-friendly, but I think that actually you would still more than likely take this into a dealer to upgrade the memory and so forth. One of the big problems with, not problems, but unique things about these early Macs is how you have to take them apart. So if you've ever worked on one of these, you know that, there's a couple of screws back here that are really easy to get to, and they come right out. Now these screws are torque 15 screws. I don't know if that's going to focus. So T15 torque screws. And these two here are simple to take out, but there's two that are right in here on either side of the handle. And they're way up here towards the top of the monitor, towards the top of the screen. And so you have to have something that's pretty long, I would say at least 6 inches long, if not more, to get up in there to get those screws. So I bought a set of these on Amazon. They were super cheap. I could have bought one, or for a couple of dollars more, I could have bought a bunch, and I ended up buying like a whole set. So I have all the Torx long, 12-inch long Torx screws. I think they're made for automotive mostly, to get into some really cramped spaces for automotive purposes, but they work great for these Macintosh systems as well. There's one, and there's two. So now we should be able to get this off. Sometimes this is kind of stuck on, but in this case, it's not. So this back case should pop off now. Let's see. Yep. There we go. And on all of these early cases, they have the team that worked on them. Their signatures are on the back of the case when you open it up. So pretty cool to have that little piece of history. Now, I have another SE that does not have that in the back. So just be aware your mileage may vary if you are trying to get one of these specifically for those signatures. You may end up with one that doesn't have the signatures. But I believe everything earlier than this will have the signatures. So some SEs will have it. Probably most of the SEs will have it. And the earlier the Mac Plus and the 512 and the 128, those should all have the signatures in the back. So really, really cool. So as you can see, we do have a SCSI hard drive here, 50-pin connector over here. So a little dusty, but not horrible for its age. There's some dust, on the CRT, of course, because that just attracts, the static energy just attracts dust, and there's some dust here. But this isn't bad, really, if you consider how old this thing is. Let's see, this came out, 35 years ago this came out. So yeah, not too bad for, how old it actually is. The dangerous parts here, of course, there were some people in my earlier video that's like, oh, never touch the CRT. Well, yes, I would agree. If you don't know what you're doing, don't touch the CRT. Don't open systems, CRTs of any type of this kind, especially ones that have live voltage analog boards here. If it was plugged in, there would be some live connections over here on this side. They do have a little shield here to protect you against and protect against shorts and things like that. But don't mess around with CRTs if you don't know what you're doing. Luckily, I've done this a number of times now over the years, and I feel pretty confident with my skills in this regard that I'm going to stay safe. And I'll keep saying that until, of course, I get a big shock, and then who knows? Maybe I'll give up on this. No, I'm just kidding. So just be careful when you're reaching in here, where you're reaching and where you're grabbing and touching. Just note that there could be some voltage left over in the CRT. Yes, I'm touching it because I feel safe. because I know what I'm doing. 11,000 volts, let's say. Wouldn't be very nice to go through your body. In case anyone is wondering what you do, if you're concerned about voltage perhaps still being present in the CRT, well, you can use a high voltage probe like this one. There's also other ones that attach directly to your multimeter. This one has a built-in gauge on it though. It's a little dusty. This one has a built-in gauge to show how many volts are in the system. You touch the point to the probe at this end, and there's another wire here that clips on right here to the external part of the CRT that has these little ears, dog ears on it. But in this case, you would connect this little probe here to those little dog ears, and then you could use the probe to stick down in the cap and see if there is voltage present. If there is, it'll dissipate quickly because basically in this tube up here, this red part, this is a big, huge, ginormous resistor up here, this huge resistor that goes from the tip all the way back to here. And that will discharge quite safely the voltage from the, if there's any in the CRT, it'll discharge it that way. If you don't want to use that, like I don't want to today because I'm 99% sure there's no voltage in here, but just to be on the safe side, you can also use a screwdriver, preferably a cleaner one than this, and you can clip an alligator clip. I'm just going to move that around a little bit, make sure I've got a good connection. You can use clip this to your screwdriver and then clip the other end again to these dog ears somehow. I think I can get it right there. And then, with that securely clipped in, you can go ahead and put your screwdriver in here, and you might get a spark because there's no resistor here. So it's just going to dissipate that energy very quickly. Of course, never do this with the actual computer or CRT plugged in and turned on. But in this case, in order just to be on the safe side, I'll go ahead and hook this up. And then you can get behind this cap here. I'm going to need to do this anyway to take this off. But you can kind of press in on the clip. Now notice I'm hitting the clip now, and there was no spark or anything. So yeah, as expected, there's no charge left in this CRT. But you can kind of press that little clip that's in there, and take that off. So what I was doing, just so you can see, what I was doing is I was taking the screwdriver, pressing it in against this, which is springy, and then that helps you to be able to take off the cap that goes on, the anode cap that goes to the CRT. And it is quite, over time, these things get quite messy. So you can see my fingers, that's just from the back of this. It's very, very sticky. And eventually I'll probably want to clean that up with some isopropyl alcohol or something. Definitely have to clean my fingers up before I do anything else. Now, in order to check to see if I can find that reefer cap or whatever else might have exploded in here, I'm going to have to, there's some connections like this one up here and some more down here that are going to have to come off. So luckily they just have little clips and should be able to get them off like that. Yeah, where my fingers are right now, we would definitely not want the CRT to be to have any juice in it at all. There's a ground lead or ground connection. Oh, too big of a screwdriver. That'll have to come off. And a couple of screws over on this side. Definitely need a smaller screwdriver. 2 more screws right here. There we go. Not the easiest thing in the world to get out in this particular model. This looks like it's in pretty good shape, really, overall. There's some static and stuff there that we'll probably want to get out, but so far everything looks pretty good on this board. So reefer caps are generally located right next to the power input. One edge of them should be on the voltage rail that's coming in from the wall. Those are the ones that typically have a problem. And so they're going to be here in this power supply unit somewhere. This particular one is made by Sony. That's kind of interesting. But we'll need to take this cover off in order to see down in here and see if there's a reefer cap that I expect to be right in this area here. I've never opened one of these up before, but just knowing a little bit about reefer caps, that would be my guess. There we go. Came off pretty well. Taking a look at this, I don't see a Rifa cap in here. It's not immediately obvious anyway. Could have been a capacitor, because capacitors also can have a stinky smell when they blow up. I do see, I have to do a little research. I do see right here, it's kind of a square capacitor and another one here. Well, this is turning out to be a little more work than I thought. The wires that go over to the plug have this hot snot in it. You can see a little bit there. And that's holding down this little ferrite bead. It's annoying as anything. There it goes, finally. Now with that out of the way, can I get this past the wires? Yep. Ta-da! And these are the two caps specifically that I'm worried about, that they might have blown. And now that I can see the markings on them, I can go get see if I have some replacements for those. I'm also doing inspections just to see if there's anything else, that looks bad or blown. So far, there's nothing I can see really that looks like it's blown up. Something was obviously smoking. Not seeing anything. I did test the fuse, but the fuse is just fine. All right, well, you probably noticed that these don't look like normal Rifa caps. They're not, I don't know if they're Rifa branded because they've got this black shield over them. That's what a normal Rifa cap looks like. It's a kind of a gold, boxy kind of thing with this resin plastic stuff over it that usually cracks, and then the cap leaks. And they're branded. These are Rifa branded caps, filter caps. So it's unclear to me that these are actually a problem. Certainly the smell that I smelled indicated that it was probably these. But I'm going to go ahead and take these off, put this back together, put it back in, and see if it works. Now I'm going to go ahead and dust all this stuff off too before I put it back together with some compressed air. I got the garage door open here, so there's light coming in, but I figure you might as well look at the main board as well. This protective shield, grounding, and I assume RF shield, comes off pretty easily, really super thin. And then I think if I disconnect the SCSI and the floppy cables, which just plug in through some holes here. Oh, and the power. There's also a power plug here. This is the hardest one to get out, in my opinion. There we go. Okay, now I should be able to pull this out, I think. So I got it up far enough. You can see if you get it up far enough right here that everything will line up. You should just be able to pop this out if it doesn't slide out easily like it wasn't for me. There we go. Disconnect the speaker. Ooh, hello.
Hello, what have we here?
I have an expansion board or accelerator board that I did not know about. This is the Super Mac. Awesome. You can see this is super dusty. It looks like it's been upgraded with full 4 meg of memory, perhaps. But let me just dust this off so we can see this a little bit more clearly. So apparently this is a Super Mac speed card. Based on the weight of this machine, I did not expect there to be a accelerator card in here. I thought it would just be the memory and the system. Now, there is a Varda battery here. I definitely want to take that out. And I do want to take the accelerator board off temporarily just to make sure that nothing has blown underneath it that would cause that smoke, since I'm not 100% sure that these Rifa type caps were bad. So here's the board. I'm not seeing anything out of the ordinary here. Got our original 68000 P8, same processor that was originally came in the Amiga, and of course in the original Macintosh as well. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything blown or suspicious, really. Nothing leaking. The board seems to be in really great shape. So, there's a date here, 1986. I know it's upside down, but I can see it. Macintosh SE, 1986. I'm not seeing anything out of the ordinary, so I'm just going to clip out this Varda battery and we'll reassemble it and see if it works. So this Varta battery is a lithium battery, not a NiCad battery, which is probably why it didn't leak like the other ones usually do. So that's really good. Really good to know. That's probably why if this had been a NiCad, it probably would have been all over for this poor little Macintosh SE, but probably a pretty expensive battery back in the day. I don't know, 1987, 1986. Yeah, these probably cost a pretty penny back then. I'm not sure if originally, I'm sure there's service manual instructions, but maybe you're supposed to take the CRT out or take the front off in order to get this analog board in and out, but it is in there. It just takes a little bit of, you have to pull this forward a little bit without putting too much pressure on it. You can get it in, so looks like it's working.
Later, at the Hall of Justice.
Okay, I think I've got everything hooked back up the way it was. I'm not going to put the case on yet. Just, I'll be careful. Don't worry, folks. I'll be careful of the CRT. But let's just plug it in and see what happens when we turn it on. Okay, got AC plugged in. Let's go ahead and switch it on, and what do we get? I got a bong. I hear the hard drive going. I see the light flashing. The screen is not warmed up yet. Come on, baby. Oh, there we go. So the screen's still warming up. We've got a flashing disk, which means that probably the hard drive is indeed bad on this thing. Oh, there we go. There we go. That was just turned down. That's why. Wow, that's a nice picture. And it looks nice and centered and everything. Okay, that's looking good. The only thing is, it doesn't have a disk. And I've got some startup disks, but before I go ahead and see if they work, I do want to make a backup copy of them. So, yeah, I don't want to destroy those startup disks at all. But I'm just glad this is up and running. There's no more smoke, which is good. So I'm going to leave these out for now. They were basically put there for interference, RF interference reasons, but I need to make a backup of the system disk and then can play around with this a little bit and see how that accelerator card works. So very cool. I'm glad I was able to get this working. So if you wouldn't mind leaving me a like on the video and subscribing, that would be great. I'm really trying to get the channel up to about 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I need your help to do that. So if you've watched more than 1 or 2 of my videos and you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. It would really help out the channel. I'd really, really appreciate it. And of course, leave comments. If you had an SE when you were younger, I'll probably come back to this and try to repair the hard drive and get the software up and running. But I think for now, that was pretty good, considering this was just a couple hours of effort to take these caps out and kind of dust everything off and take a look inside. I feel pretty good about where I'm at with this right now. So also consider becoming a patron as well. I'll list their names in the credits. And thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next time. Patrons receive ad-free and early access to content after the episode commentary, and of course, your name in the credits. If you liked that episode, here's a few more you might enjoy, and I thank you for your support.
End of line.